huntsmen that were caught for illegal hunting. One of them's actually shown blowing for the kill. You know, the hunting horn you saw earlier, there's a particular note, I have just killed a fox. So he's shown with the body of the fox blowing for the kill, and he said, oh, it was an accident. It didn't stand up in court. So then when the second one, when Nick Vycroft got caught, they just hung him out to dry. They didn't even bother trying to defend him, and they fired him.
Okay.
And they're out there every single week. Oh, I'm talking of fracking. The master of the Crawley and Horsham is the fat fracker off the Balcombe estate. And he really doesn't like it when we sab on the Balcombe estate. He assaulted 3 of us the other week. He's been charged this week for assaulting me and 10 others. He's actually seen on video, like beating me with a white riding crop. Yeah, so there's lots of links between the corporate monster and the hunts.
Yeah.
But yes, there are successful prosecutions.
Not to mention the corporate, I
all
think, all the justices.
Yeah, the really important thing is all of the prosecutions of the fox hunts have either been footage taken by hunt saboteurs or hunt monitors. And whilst we're at corporate whores, the Surrey police are the most bent police force in the country. Twice recently, the Surrey Union Foxhounds, they killed a deer right under our noses, they killed a fox right under our noses. On both occasions, the police issued statements on their website saying, we're satisfied it was an accident. And on one of those occasions, they actually arrested 4 hunt saboteurs for trying to save the life of a deer. So, yeah, lots of links between lots of very dodgy people and the hunts.
It's just regarding your comments on nuclear energy, and I'd just like to know your thoughts regarding irreversible global warming and how we tackle that. Because I mean, there are some people out there who think nuclear energy could be one way to do that. I just wondered what your opinion was.
I work as an eco-auditor, so that means I advise charities and businesses how to be greener. And every day of the week I'm going to premises that have their heating on at 25 degrees, air conditioning on at the same time, windows open on 24 hours a day. We are actually raping the planet to heat empty rooms, light empty rooms, and heat the air inside it. If we, the amount of energy that the nuclear, remember, they keep saying nuclear industry is going to give us 20% of our energy. That is not right. It's 20% of our electricity. And our electricity is only 30% of our total energy consumption. So all this argument about and the money being invested in nuclear is about for 5% of our energy. Energy efficiency, I go back to clients a year later and they've cut their energy use by 50%. You know, charities like buildings like this regularly, they work 9 to 5 and it's on 24 hours a day because nobody knows how to do the operate the switch. In fact, literally,
Yes. Well, I mean, I've actually cut our domestic energy consumption by fitting little programmable thermostats in each room, so that now I heat my bedroom an hour before I go to bed and not for the rest of the day. You know, there are simple things that can be done.
Lighting is now an LED light in my bathroom. When I moved into my house, my bathroom was lit by 2 60-watt lamps, 120 watts. I then put in 2 11-watt energy saving bulbs, so it's down to 22. And when they blew, I put in 3 1-watt LEDs. So my bathroom's lit by 3 watts.
Is it really
from 120? So my entire house is lit by 100 watts. You're actually seeing in these places they'll have, this probably's got, you know, how many are there up there? Well, quite often there will be boxes with 4 lamps in it, with 4 18 watts, and there's like dozens in the office. And you can remove those and then have office desks with 5 watts. If the money was spent on that or we're spending on nuclear power, we could sort out phenomenal more than what, phenomenal cheaper.
We have energy companies anyway with vested interest. Of course.
Jürgen, you want to say anything about Jürgen has a fabulous house, which is one of 180 in the country, I think.
Basically, just regarding renewables, just very quickly, nuclear. Just again in Germany, widely reported, but obviously not here in Britain for all the reasons we know. 27.3% produced with renewable energy last year, so 2014 absolute record. And to say it saved 25%, the carbon emission in Germany are now down by 25% on 1990 level. So over the last 25 years, they saved 25% of CO2 emission. And nuclear is actually going out in Germany. So it's incredible. All the renewable energy, which is now producing 27%, has been installed in the last 10 years. So that's a myth about if you want to decarbonize it's electricity, it's renewable.
You were,
It was just a quick question for Raoul. In terms of your relationship with farmers particularly, do you find them, I mean, how do you find them generally? Do you find some that are more sympathetic than others, or?
Yeah, it's really strange mix. There are some of the farmers are very much on the side of the hunt. I've lost count of how many times I've get off my land. Get off my onions was one of the best ones. Some of the farmers are very aggy. Others don't want the hunts on their land. Right, so a lot of them feel pressured into having the hunt on the land. They don't really want them there. There's an organisation called Hounds Off. They're there to try to help people in rural areas who don't want the hunt on the land anymore. My brother-in-law bought a dirty great chunk of Dartmoor and just closed it off to the hunt, including a lane that they needed to get down to get access to another big chunk they needed. So that's like a big piece of land gone to them. You're not a farmer, you just shut down the local hunt. There are, even in the rural areas, 70% of people are opposed to hunting and 80% nationally. So there's a lot of support in the countryside. Very often, if we've lost sight of a hunt, it'll be the local people actually tell us where they've gone. But it is a mixed bag, to be honest with you. There are a lot of people. There's a lot of shooting out in the countryside. A lot of farms actually make more money by allowing people to go shooting than they do by actually growing crops. Because rich idiots from the city pay £1,100 a day to blast factory farmed pheasants out of the sky. The pheasant industry is just horrific. Like some of the photographs we got when we were down in Somerset Cold Zone, thousands of baby pheasants with rings through their noses because they're so packed in that if you didn't ring their noses, they'd be pecking the feathers off each other because they're so stressed. And they're literally battery farmed, then placed in a release pen, then released out, and then they're shot. £1,100 a day. So of course the farmers that are doing that with their land really don't want the hunt saboteurs traipsing across their land because they know that we'll be stopping that as well. In fact, we spent all of last Saturday standing in front of the guns. We couldn't find a fox hunt to do. That's interesting. And that was on the Balkan estate again. People that really hate fracking. God, they hate us when down there.
Green and pleasant lands.
Yeah, it's in England's green and pleasant land. Unfortunately, it's covered in pheasant pens and the Neb estate down near Crawley, where they get huge government grants for rewilding Britain. It's a venison farm. They rear thousands of deer in close proximity to then release them so they can shoot them, and they get government grants. Natural England gives them a fortune to rewild Britain. It's obscene. Again, the corruption at every level. These are people who gave the licences for the badger cull. Yeah. The people who are supposed to defend Britain's wildlife hand out the licences to murder thousands of badgers. The Scottish government giving out the licences to shoot the seals. And again, that's about your corporations. That's so you can get cheap salmon in Marks and Spencer's, Sainsbury's, Tesco's. That's where the fault lies. Some of the landowners are very helpful, friendly, others aren't.
we'll take a couple of quick questions. I'm sure you're all trusty. So one there, anybody else? To be there, yeah.
I just have two questions. First question is to our Mexican guests. What were actually the reasons, what you think, why those students disappeared, were killed, you don't know. But what were the reasons? Is it just because they come from a left-wing background, left-wing school? Or what other reasons are behind this? Or is in this area, are there like people who really are opposing the government, or what do you think is
Well, there are various reasons. Historically, this area is where many of the most clear political people have come out. It's historical. Also, this school has been involved in, left thinking, and they are the students, and it's just not good when the people who are working with low wages, that they start thinking more. That's also another reason. And a very direct reason is they thought they were coming to disturb the political rally of the wife of the major of the state, because she wanted of that city because she wanted to promote herself. She being a leader of the local organized crime organization, the school of Guerreros. Yeah, Guerreros, yeah. So that's what apparently that was the excuse to say what they did all that to them. But they've been followed from the moment they left the school. It's quite strange. I mean, also to decide killing them, 43 people is quite. To dare to do that, how far they've come already, thinking that no one was going to notice or to pay attention or to do nothing about it.
And also, in addition to that, something very important to mention is that this part of Mexico, the south of Mexico, is very rich in natural resources. There are lots of economic interest there. And actually, after the disappearance of the students, the president, Peña Nieto, he announced like 7 measures of security. Plus, in this same discourse, he said, and we are going to create these special economic areas. And he mentioned, of course, Guerrero, another Chiapas, and Oaxaca. And these places are now recently, and not recently, but also before, been known that there have been lots of struggles from indigenous communities that are being displaced, and that their lands are being taken in order to put some corporations there. So this is indirectly, it's also something, because these students are very aware of their connection to the land. They are peasants. They are coming from peasant families, so it's all connected.
Very, very, very near to the school is one of the second largest mine of America, the continent, and also the growing of drugs in that area. They bother this growing, because the cartels are working together with the government. Actually, they are kind of the same. It's just they were bothering, and it's so strange because they were those who wanted to do good for the community, and it's just really sad.
And it's one of the poorest states in Mexico.
Yes, certainly.
Just a second question I wanted to ask. It was for you, sir. What would you say to a statement saying, we still live in excellent democracy, seeing what happens in Mexico, what happens in the Ukraine when where a region which wants to become independent, there are two powers and shoot each other, or people, some region who want to become independent, just go and shoot other people. Saying that, if Scotland wants to become independent, all right, there is a vote for that. Don't you think we still live in an excellent democracy after all?
No, obviously that may be the case. Look at the genesis of ISIS. Okay, it may look on the surface here we live in a more peaceful, more democratic society. But what's being done in our name, and what are the consequences of it? Our government, with the urging of Rupert Murdoch, invaded Iraq in an illegal war. Hundreds of thousands of people were made homeless, tens of thousands of people were killed, and the people who were put in jail during that invasion were the germ cell for ISIS. We have set off an appalling Pandora's box across the Middle East that I believe at the time, because I actually was out there marching, that will last for 3 or 4 generations. The destruction that Britain has through our oil companies in Iran, Britain overthrew the previous, with America, overthrew the previous Social Democrat elected government, installed the Shah, and that led to the fundamentalist Shah fundamentalist Ayatollah, and the consequences for the Iranian people. All over the planet, the consequence of our democracy are we've replaced the empire that Britain had up to the 40s with an empire of tax havens. And the billions that are being stolen from countries and developing countries that you say have terrible democracies, maybe they might have decent democracies if we stopped stealing the money from the poor there. The consequences of our supposed democracy is appalling in terms of its consequences for planetary destruction, death and poverty and lack of health facilities in the developing world, as well as the It's okay on the surface here, but I would argue it is not a democracy if the policies of the government are directed by a small cabal of the 1%. I'll give you one example. I was invited to the Lib Dem conference last spring to make the case before the book came out. And I use the Lib Dems as a case study. Look, in the book, I'm not talking about Lib Dems. Labour and the Tories are the same. It's all in there. The Lib Dems is one I'm personally aware of. I made the case using the Liberal Democrats as a case study for the prostitute state. And there was an MP called David Ward there. And he was making the case in response to my making the argument. So he stood up, and I expected, okay, he's going to trash me now and pull all the holes in my argument. And his response, he says, I actually disagree with Danica. I don't agree with the case Danica's made, because it's far, far worse than the case that Danica's made. He said, this morning at the federal conference, the MPs have a meeting every morning at party conference. And the first item on the agenda is a press report from the press officers. And he said he gave up counting how many times they mentioned the Daily Mail line on a political issue after the 12th, 13th time. So there is a party of government. The MPs are meeting. We elect them. And what they're actually being told is this is Lord Rothermere, who is a fascist extreme right-winger, who appointed Paul Dacker to be the editor of the Daily Mail. What is his line on it? And on issue after issue after issue, such as even the bedroom tax got demolished within a couple of weeks before the consultation was closed because the Daily Mail said no. That's not a democracy. And the consequences are terrible, because it actually means Britain is a corporate raider around the planet. We're a raider of the budgets of developing countries, and we're trashing the planet. If that's a nice democracy, it's not good enough for me.
What would you change in the long run?
Pardon?
You can do something in the short run with demonstrations and activists, as you say. What would you change?
I don't want to take people's time, but very, very briefly, first, off the top of my head, you need to separate corporate lobbying from political parties. You should not be able to be a member of a political party and lobbyist. Those two things need to be separate. The top of the political parties are grabbed by the short and curlies, by these corporate lobbyists. And that's just one example. You actually fund it with state money rather than corporate money and tax-saving money. You start cleaning up the funding, you separate the corporate part. That's two just tiny examples of what we can do.
Okay, last question.
Very good.
Yeah, good.
General question for all the speakers, although I think our Mexican guests already answered to that. In the case of Mexico, you are kind of tired, and that's why it's being demonstrated against governments and stepping up. In the case of Britain, we have seen that tiredness, that fed up in Southern Europe, in some countries in Southern Europe, in Spain, Greece. How would you, because we are a very small crowd, we take out of the population in London, how would you convince general people that cannot take the, say, psychological time because they have a very low wage, because they have a family to feed, and how would you convince them that this affects them? And in the case of illegal hunting, in the case of a prostitute state, how would you tackle that issue to people? Because generally they will just say, well, that yeah, okay, it's bad, but I'm in a 6.5 per hour wage, so.
Just very briefly, I just think there is an interesting connection. There's an interesting connection between Britain and Mexico. I think in the debate tonight about Mexico, what didn't come out is how much it is basically a narco state. And why is it a narco state? Because Britain and America have captured the UN and declared war on drugs after Nixon. And in Britain, none of the parties can move on that issue as long as the Daily Mail has a war on drugs. The tabloids in this country has a war on drugs, and our government won't budge, no matter what the science says. Their chief scientific advisor said we need to legalise and use the money to fund help to help drug addicts. The Green Party is brave on the issue, but the tabloids are actually holding Britain back, and the same in America. Murdoch is doing the same in America, and that is actually causing the narco state, because at the fundamental behind this huge issue in Mexico, and the appalling deaths that we're not talking about. Why isn't that on the front page of the Daily Mail and said yet another immigrant has actually taken 20 quid extra for benefits, you know? We're being manipulated, and there's a direct link between that prostitute state, prostitute media, and this issue.
Can I say something? The organized crime or narco state together, they are diversified. They have diversified their stakes on how they get the money. So actually now, drugs is not the main one where they get money. It's more with human slavery and
piracy,
yes,
resources.
piracy. But they are working in like 100 different countries, and certainly in Europe. They are cleaning their money here. They have like normal businesses, and for example, HSBC is, you know, it's been used everywhere. They clean the money there. Money laundering on HSBC. So maybe, you know, like what he's recommending, maybe we shouldn't have our accounts on HSBC, and we should say something with whatever we are doing to. I do
What
certainly
happened
agree
with HSBC is that the Sinaloa cartel, which is the cartel that operates in the Pacific side of Mexico, funneled all their earnings through the HSBC, and then HSBC sent all the money to the city. So it was all cleaned in the city, and this is what happens. It's been reported before in The Guardian and The Observer, I think, with different banks like Wells Fargo, Wachovia, and so on.
Right, Raoul, do you want to say what about? Basically, the question was basically, what do you say to a person on £4.50 an hour and has to try and struggle to stay alive, sort of thing? Yeah.
I'd say probably at least half the subgroup are either unwaged or on extremely low wages. They still come out every week and put heart and soul into direct action. I've been a revolutionary anarchist for a very long time. It is about getting out on the streets and peacefully changing the world. So it doesn't matter whether you're earning £4.50 an hour or £100 an hour. The answer lies in getting out there and getting involved in the campaigning.
Thanks. We have to stop now. We're running about half an hour over time. Yes, thank you all for coming. I know you're anxious to get away. We have another series of lectures on the 24th of February. There's one every month anyway, so you will hear about it. And three completely different lectures again next month. And Dunnigan's book is at the back. There's drink out there, help yourself, and there's some nibbles and things. Eat them, otherwise you'll have to take them home. So thank you very much for coming, and we'll hope we see you again.